Hey everybody, thanks for watching Be Made Whole. This is a show where we talk about all things health and wellness. This is your host, Pooja Chilukuri, and today I am very excited to introduce my guest, Anna Campanella. I've gotten to know Anne recently, and I'm very happy to also call her friend. She's a very accomplished woman. She doesn't toot her own horn, so I'm going to do it for her today. She has two memoirs and four poetry books out there, and she's received several mentions and awards. She's been awarded the Poet Laureate for North Carolina. I think is the highest award that you can get for poetry. And her memoirs, I've read her poems and her memoirs. They both touched me very deeply. She writes about subjects that are very close to my heart, and I know that some of you watching, you probably will be able to relate. She has struggled with her mom and her journey with Alzheimer's, and also with her daughter's journey with celiac disease. And she's here today with us to talk about some of those topics. And I have some questions for her, so I'll get started. Welcome, Anne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Pooja. It is wonderful to be here and just great to see you.
It's good to see you too. And and I'm a fan of your writing. I've read your poems, I've read your memoirs, and there is so much in there that I really wanted you to come on here and share with us. So the first question I have for you is, what led you to share your journey or write those books?
That is a great question. I have been a writer all my life, and writing is the way that I process life. So as different things happen, my mom had Alzheimer's and began showing symptoms of that. I just felt like I needed an outlet for that. And I journaled about it. And the same thing with Celiac Mom. I knew what was happening, that something was going on with my daughter that needed to be addressed. And actually, that book came about a little bit differently. I went through the process of learning about celiac and understanding my daughter's illness. And then I felt like I need to share this with the world because I didn't know what celiac was before we experienced it. And I thought so many people must be, they could be, their lives could benefit from knowing a little bit about the changes they could make in their diet that would really improve their lives. So I just wanted to put that information out there for people in the form of a story, which is how I tell things.
Yes, and I've read that one, and I really appreciate that you did it as a story. There's a lots and lots of information out there, but sometimes it's hard to make it relatable and applicable. So just for those watching, if you don't know what celiac disease is, that is where your body launches an autoimmune response to gluten that is found in wheat and barley and oats, and where the walls of your intestine, the projections, which help you to absorb your food, they become flat. So you become extremely malnourished, and it also has very uncomfortable digestive symptoms. And I know you went through a lot of those things with your daughter. So how did you first suspect or find out that gluten was causing her issues?
Well, first we began, or I should say, I noticed things. My husband kind of saw things, but he didn't really take it into serious consideration. But I, as a mother, saw that my daughter wasn't sleeping well. That was probably the first thing. She did not sleep through the night, which is normal for babies, but not necessarily normal for toddlers. And even up until the age of 5, she was waking up multiple times a night. She didn't nap. She had dark circles under her eyes, obviously from not sleeping, but also from what was going on inside her body. She had severe bloating. She had chronic constipation, so much that she would cry when she had to go to the bathroom, which broke my heart. She also had aches and pains. And then something I had no idea because I was a new mom, one of the symptoms was she really had very low energy. And I thought, oh, she's just she likes to read and play with blocks and do quiet things. Little did I know, once we removed the gluten, she was kind of just a bundle of energy, like the Energizer bunny, just running around everywhere. But those were just some of the things that told me, oh, another thing, big thing, she was not growing properly.
Yeah.
And I was watching as she was, in her preschool class, her friends were just getting higher and higher, going into bigger clothes, and Sydney was in the same size clothes for months and months. And that was really concerning. I thought, what's happening here? Something clearly is not good.
Not good. So, what alerted you that it might be gluten? Because I know this is not easy. You're trying to find a root cause, a needle in a haystack. I would be pulling my hair out trying to figure this out.
Yes, and my daughter is 20 now, so it was back when she was 3, 4, and 5 that I was really searching for an answer. And gluten was not even a word that most people spoke about. So I was just, I am a researcher by nature. I just take everything to Google, and I was looking constantly. And it took a long time. I mean, I would plug in her symptoms, and sometimes gluten or celiac would show up, and I'd think, what is that? And even one friend said, you might try taking her off of gluten and see if that helps. And I just thought, gluten, it's in wheat, and wheat is in everything we eat. There's no way I'm going to do that, or that's going to be my last thing.
Yeah.
But finally, a good friend of mine who had been listening to me, just all of my concerns over the years, she told me a story about somebody in her family who had been to a doctor, someone who wasn't growing properly. And she said, maybe this doctor could help you. Because my doctor, who I loved very much, but she wasn't familiar with celiac, just kind of poo-pooed my concerns a little bit. She was like, she's normal. She's going to grow out of this. Don't worry about it. But when I went to this other doctor and told him all of my symptoms, he said, we're checking for celiac. And so that was the beginning of getting some answers.
That's wonderful, because I know it can be nerve-wracking trying to wait and figure out what's happening. And meanwhile, the symptoms are not getting better. So, so I know with that, you have to stay away from gluten completely, but I know gluten can also cross-react with other foods. So I'm sure this journey was very, very difficult with the transition, especially for a little kid. Can you talk if there are some moms that are watching this show, and if they're trying to make changes, even trying to make a healthy change for your kids could be very, very difficult. So to you, I feel like it's like learning another language or something. How did you make that transition? I'm sure it wasn't easy, but
oh my goodness, it was so hard. And I will say it helped us to have the diagnosis, because once I knew she had celiac disease and celiac meant that gluten was harming her body, I was like, okay, I'm going to become the gluten police. And so in order to do that, I started out by visiting with a nutritionist who gave me some basic guidelines. And some of those were shop on the perimeter of the grocery store. Just, fresh fruits and vegetables are always gluten-free. Most meats like hamburger and fish and things like that are usually safe as long as they don't have gravy or something like that on them. Chicken, you have to be careful with. I was feeding Sydney chicken into her diagnosis, not realizing that some brands are processed with gluten. And so she continued having symptoms. So that was one, the shopping in that way. The next thing that sort of saved my life, I guess, was I had to make a list of 3 to 5 foods or meals that I knew Sydney loved, and transition each of the ingredients that had gluten in them. So finding something that would be a substitute. so that I could get through a week. You know, ideally, if you have 5 meals, you can rotate them enough. And having 5 meals, and for Sydney, it was things like spaghetti, because I could find gluten-free spaghetti sauce. And that spaghetti sauce, even though the gluten-free noodles tasted a little bit differently, if you put spaghetti sauce on anything, it's kind of the same thing, at least for her. Pizza was another thing that was a favorite of hers. And it's so hard. Back then, there were very few places that offered gluten-free pizza. So I had to make my own, and I had to find a crust that was good. And there are lots of gluten-free crusts out now. And if you can find a crust that you like and you know what your child likes, you can put the right toppings on. We ate eggs a lot for multiple meals because she liked scrambled eggs. We made baked potatoes, things like that. So there are ways to do it. In fact, in my book, I have 14 easy gluten-free meals because I'm not a cook. And I thought, I just want to help people make that transition because it's a huge leap. And if you're used to eating gluten as we were for every single meal, you really have to, kind of put your big girl pants on and really work hard to make sure and we could not have a speck of gluten. Even the tiniest speck would cause a reaction in her body. And that's how it is with most people who have celiac.
Yes. And that's one of the things I also do love about your book. And you don't just talk about avoiding gluten, but also where all it could be hiding. I would have never dreamed that it would be hiding in chicken, for example, right? Like that wouldn't
Right.
occur to me at all. And then I know you mentioned things like candies, the honey candy that you had once from the health food store. Who
Yes,
would have thought there would be? So
exactly.
even just learning alternative names under which it hides, right?
Yes,
I'm sure that was a big learning curve.
it was another easy or sort of simple thing. You would think Rice Krispies, it's just puffed rice. That should be fine. But it has malt in it. And malt, I believe, is made from barley. And so we could not do regular Rice Krispies. But now you can find gluten-free rice or crisp rice or, some form that's similar, but that works.
And I really, really, when I was reading the book, I was cheering. I was like applauding you because it's just so hard. I know, because even trying to change the brand for my kids when they were little, goldfish, it had so many chemicals. And I said one day, I don't want to feed them goldfish. So I wanted to switch it to something similar, the cheddar puffs or the Annie's bunnies or whatever. And
Yes,
even that
yes.
was so hard because once they're so used to. So can you talk to us just a little bit? And I'm really wanting, this show, I'm hoping that there are moms out there that are trying to make changes with their kids. And I just want them to know they're not alone because going
Yes.
to birthday parties, being at school, going to camps, all the places where your kids want to go and feel like they belong, they stand out because they can't eat the things that other kids are eating, right? So
Exactly.
do you have anything to say to us for that? Or yeah,
Sure. I mean, just as you were saying, it's such a tough journey, and it's a heartbreak as a mom to watch your child not be able to join in when there are activities, and almost every activity revolves around food. And so when we homeschooled for part of Sydney's schooling, but part of it we didn't. And during her kindergarten and first grade years, I became the school mom who was present everywhere I could possibly be, just so that I could provide her with snacks and I could educate other parents. I would send them lists of food that was gluten-free so that when they brought snacks in, they would include Sydney, which didn't always happen. And I guess I'm thinking about birthday parties and summer camps and just so many different experiences where your child will be on the outside of things. And my daughter felt that. She felt it intensely. And what I tried to do is I would take her, after the party, when she didn't get to eat the big Cinderella ice cream cake or, whatever else it was, I'd say, honey, let's go to the store and see if we can find something really special for you. And so she would have something to look forward to, or she would feel like she could get a treat also. And that was another thing. I'd always try to pack her very favorite things. And there were times that some of the other students or kids would be like, we want what Sydney has. That looks good. Like the gluten-free pretzels apparently taste better to a lot of kids than regular pretzels. So that was rare, but it was fun when that would happen.
Yeah, yes. And I know, support is also very, very important. Educating people before they could even support us, because like you said, if you've never heard of gluten, what's that? You don't know. And I'm
Yes.
telling you, Anne, this is an important conversation because kids these days, they have so many allergies to so many different things. I've been in the classroom with babies and toddlers, and I walk in and I'm horrified at all these red placemats they have because you don't want to feed the wrong kid the wrong food. And food
Yes.
is such an important, I mean, growing up, to me, food was a nourishing, beautiful thing. But these days, food can be your enemy, which is so sad, right? Like that breaks
Yes.
my heart that our immune systems have become weakened, whatever be the reason, right? So
Yes.
in many ways, I think your journey with celiac could be anybody's journey that where their immune system is sort of betraying us, because food is supposed to be nourishing, right? So
Yes.
even to go through that, I think a lot of times we don't realize, but there's a grief because things that you could do now you can't do anymore. So there's
Exactly.
loss. So I really appreciate you bearing your heart and putting it out there. And gluten, celiac, I know that's a severe situation, but I know there's people that have chronic symptoms that get relieved when they get off of
Yes.
gluten. And you've
Yes.
experienced that. Can you share that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes. Both my husband and I, it's possible I have celiac, but if I don't have celiac, I definitely, and my husband, we both have gluten intolerance. And we discovered that after um, being with Sydney and realizing for me, it was easier to cook completely gluten-free food. And I decided, kind of in solidarity with her, that I would go gluten-free so she wouldn't feel like she was the only person. And eventually my husband also attempted to go gluten-free, and he has learned after doing that he feels so much better. It affects his golf game when he eats gluten. And so it's worth it to him, even though it's just a sensitivity. He doesn't have the aches and pains. His arthritis is less. There's so many things that if you use food to heal yourself, and really just by taking the gluten out, it's amazing. I think here in America, we are so used to just living with this level of not feeling great, being a little bit depressed or tired, having these aches and pains. And then with gluten, I found out for myself, I didn't have headaches. When I eliminated gluten, I had more energy. I had times of like minor depressions that just lifted. My bloating just went away. Things that people think are normal. It's like, no, it's really not normal to have major bloating. It's not normal. I also had a lot of constipation and sort of varying degrees of bowel issues. And those just kind of, they left. And it was just amazing to go, oh my gosh, I'd been living with this weight of symptoms that I didn't even realize I didn't need to.
That's
So
right. You're absolutely right. We normalize things that we shouldn't be. And
yes,
until you experience what it's like to feel good, we don't know
yes,
what it is.
exactly.
And I also know that once you remove an allergen, if you reintroduce it, you might have a stronger symptom. And
Yes,
right? So
yes, that definitely happened with Sydney. I can give you an example of she had been off of it for a while, probably at least a year. And my husband accidentally got something from the health food store that was on a gluten-free table for her that had gluten in it. She came home and she started throwing up, and she'd never thrown up before when she had gluten, and the throwing up was pretty severe. And but it also showed us and it showed her that's how bad gluten was for her. Her body wanted to rid itself as quickly as possible of this offensive subject. And so,
Yeah, and I am always telling my clients, just because you had a stronger reaction, it doesn't mean you're getting worse. It actually means that your body is now speaking and you're able to listen better.
yeah,
You
that's a
know,
great way to put it.
yes,
Yes, I
that
love
you're
that.
actually healing. Your body has felt fine and now it's angry because it's like, I want to keep feeling fine. Don't give me
Right.
this thing.
Right. I
Right.
love that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because with gluten, I just want to, those who are watching, I just want you to know, if you have any kind of chronic symptoms and you suspect that it could be gluten, go talk to your doctor, your gastroenterologist, or a functional medicine practitioner, because they can all do panels and help you figure out whether it's celiac. I know there's endoscopy for that, but these days I believe there's even blood tests and a whole gluten panel that can detect that. Even if you don't have celiac, if you're just intolerant or sensitive, don't ignore it, because gluten, if you're sensitive, it can really wear down the lining, the tight junctions in your intestines. And then what happens is, not only are you not absorbing well, proteins can pass through, and your body sees that, doesn't recognize it, and launches an immune response. So if you have any kind of inflammatory chronic condition, it's not a bad idea to get that gluten checked out, right?
Absolutely. I totally agree.
That's a fair. And also, if you are struggling and you're on a journey where you're making changes and you feel like you're alone, you're having a hard time, I really recommend Anne's book. She has written it as a story, but she's also given us so many tips and strategies and techniques in there that we could be using in our lives when we're making those transitions. And I love talking to you. I'm going to have you come back, because the other subject that you've written about is Alzheimer's and dementia, very close to my heart. I'm teaching classes right now, to reduce the risk for that. So I'm going to have you come back. But before we say bye today, is there one thing that you could leave us with, a simple, small change that we could all make, that we are on our way to better health?
I do have a tip, and I don't know how simple and small it is. It's pretty basic, but the tip is, and this is what really helped my husband, is to remove gluten from your diet for at least a week. Better if you can do it for 4 to 6 weeks, but do it for a week. You won't necessarily feel any differently during that week, but be very, very careful. Don't even get a speck of it. But when you have gluten again, your body will just go along and go, oh, I'm feeling a little bit better, but you don't really notice that. But you will know again, as my husband did. He had been on a gluten fast for about 6 or 7 weeks, and he had a meatball sub, a 6-inch meatball sub. And as soon as he ate it, he called me and he was like, oh my. Hey, I just lost you for a second.
That's okay. It's recording still, but I'll get it. I'll get everything.
Okay.
The last thing I heard you say, that he ate that meatball sub after having been off of gluten for a while.
Yes. And he called me and he was like, oh, Anne, I feel horrible. I am never eating gluten again. So, just taking that little break from gluten can really show you what it's doing to your body when you get back on it.
Yeah. And once you feel good, I hope that we will want to keep wanting to feel good and normalize that
Exactly.
good feeling, right?
Yes, exactly. It's so worth it.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. And I'm going to include all your links in the notes if people want to get in touch with you. They can. And anything else that, all your links. And then the best way to get in touch with you would be email.
Sure, email is fine, or you can go through my website, or I'm on Instagram. I'm like all over social media, so you can
Okay.
find me.
I'll make sure I put everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today, Anne, and taking the
You're
time to speak
welcome.
with us. And I hope
Thank
to
you.
have you back. Yep.
Oh, it's a treat to talk to you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.